So I'd like to call the regular board meeting of November 23rd, 2021 to order. Sarah, can you lead us in the land acknowledgement, please?
Yes. We pay respect to the Algonquin people, who are the traditional guardians of this land. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. We acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future.
Thank you. Father Saunders, can you lead us in prayer, please?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of justice, we invoke your presence at this gathering of your people. And through the power of your Spirit, renew your grace in us, that we might see your presence in our midst, and hear the call of the gospel in the human need that surrounds us. You call us to join as co-creators in your work of sowing seeds of life. Give us your courage to bring the light of your justice to those in our community and world who are suffering from poverty, homelessness, oppression, and illness. Give us a heart like your Son, so that we may affirm the immense worth of each of your members, and so that we may respond to your call with faith, hope, and love. Amen. And please keep in your prayers the following person who has passed away recently: Ken Charman, father of Debbie Lloyd, principal at Our Lady of Mount Carmel School. We also pray for our staff and students' extended family members, especially those who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And the saint we are featuring tonight is St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas was born in Myra, Asia Minor, on the 15th of March, 2270, and died on the 6th of December, 343. He is also known as Nicholas of Bari, a city in southern Italy. Very little is known about the historical St. Nicholas. As a young man, he made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land and Egypt, and afterwards was made the Bishop of Myra. He was later cast into prison during the persecution of Diocletian and released after the accession of Constantine. Christian storytellers were known to adapt pagan legends and attribute them to Christian saints. This is also the case of St. Nicholas. He died on December 6, 343, and his feast day is also on the 6th of December. St. Nicholas is especially known for his generosity and assistance to the needy. He is the patron saint of many people: sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves, children, brewers, and pawnbrokers. The present-day Santa Claus has its origin in St. Nicholas. In the same way St. Nicholas cared for others, especially the underprivileged and the poor, St. Nicholas Adult High School also sees the dignity of all their students and helps them become the people that God has created them to be. Each year, they help over 1,000 adults take courses towards obtaining their high school diploma. In the spirit of St. Nicholas, they go beyond providing academic formation to caring for the well-being of the entire person. They assist with food and clothing when needed to ensure that the students can reach their full potential. Their chapel is the heart of their school, where students from all faiths find solace and peace in the midst of life's challenges, and a place to give thanks for their many blessings. Charity is essential for everyone as it produces joy. Their community has their annual food drive to support the food cupboard. During normal times, they have their annual Christmas meal where the staff and administration provide lunch for the school community. The community also comes together to celebrate the season with their Christmas play. But their commitment does not end in the classroom, as they realize this is a new beginning for their students. Therefore, in order to provide them with the resources to graduate, which means prepared to take the next step, they have on-site supports for resume writing, application completion, and interview preparation, so they may successfully find employment or continue their post-secondary education. St. Nicholas School is a great example of big community in how they welcome everyone who enters their doors. That's it, Mark.
Thank you very much, Father. Can everybody please rise for O Canada? Thank you. Item C, delegations, there are none. Item D, public session, there are none. Approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Coburn, Trustee Moore. That the agenda for the regular board meeting of November 23rd, 2021 be approved as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item F, school student departmental profile. Memo from the Superintendent of Student Success, Intermediate, Secondary, Career, and Pathway highlights. Welcome, Superintendent Kelly, Ms. Lawler, Ms. Barumbo, sorry. Welcome.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our board continues to provide strong career and pathways education for all of our students. This fall, our kindergarten to grade 12 students had the opportunity to participate in a number of initiatives that supported career and skill exploration in a personalized and group environments. Our specialized pathways team and our student success department, including Deb Lawler, our coordinator of student success, Sarah Abrams, our consultant for guidance and pathways, and Netta Bernabo, our experiential learning consultant, facilitated a vast lineup of online experiences for our students. I would now invite Deb Lawler to provide an introduction to these activities, followed by an overview by Netta Bernabo.
Thank you, Sean. We're really pleased to be here today to share some information about some events that took place in the past 2 months that were designed to support our students in exploring their career interests, as well as learning about the different pathways options that are available to them after high school. Ned is going to tell you a little bit of details about our launch virtual career fair that took place in October, as well as the events of the OCSB Career Week, which included Take Our Kids to Work Day in November, including a skilled trades career panel as well.
Good evening, everyone. This year's launch virtual career fair and education fair was a great success. For the first time, OCSB and OCDSB collaborated to coordinate this event and were able to expand from a one-day event to a two-day event. It was open to grade 10 to 12 students, ran October 21st to the 22nd, and during the event, we used the hashtag #Launch2021. Our career event was incredibly well attended. The number of students, educators, and families who registered exceeded 12,000, and we had over 3,500 students attend each day. Parents were invited as well this year, which was new. We had approximately 1,500 parents attend. Our collaboration with the OCDSB allowed for more human resources working together and providing a broader range of community partners to draw upon for presenters and exhibitors. The exhibitor hall included approximately 75 booths featuring post-secondary institutions, other pathway options such as skilled trades organizations and gap year programs, employer booths, wellness organizations, and more. And as you can see with our numbers here being a smaller board, our numbers are very impressive. They were very strong. Launch 2021 allowed students and parents to explore booths in this virtual exhibit hall, including post-secondary institutions, associations, employers, and skilled trade unions. Here to the right is what the students viewed when they went into our launch landing page. Over here at the bottom left is the auditorium. The students entered the auditorium to see our keynote speaker, Sam Dema, and our student panels. The exhibitor halls, Hall A and Hall B, allowed students to find information, engaging with community partners, asking questions, and picking up items for their swag bag. Students visiting our school board's booth were able to chat live with central staff monitoring the booth throughout the day. They were able to ask questions about different programs and get guidance on to where to find more information or how to sign up. It was a great opportunity to promote the OCSB programs. We are pleased that over 500 students visited the OCSB booth. There were 3 to 4 sessions offered each day. Students had a choice of approximately 9 to 10 workshops in each session. For example, what you are seeing here in this session were the workshops running day 1, session 1. We had workshops such as with the University of Ottawa, Centennial College, steps to studying in the US, as well as job-related sessions on how to stand out in your application, career-specific sessions on acting on stage, TV and film, and growing an entrepreneurship mind. All the sessions were recorded and are posted on our OCSB launch website for teachers, students, and parents to view. That link is on the next slide. There are also student panels during these sessions from current and alumni students, sharing their experiences on various topics such as life in college or life in university, sharing their experiences on the specialist high skills major program they attended, or being a newcomer to Canada, and more. If you click on this link right here, you will see full details to all of the sessions. Some more highlights. We had a gamification engagement in our virtual career fair. Students earned points by interacting with guest speakers, exhibitors, and collecting materials to support their career journey in their virtual swag bag. There was also exhibitor draw prizes for students who visited booths and engaged with presenters. A big shout out goes to St. Pete's for best participation. Over 700 students participated from St. Pete's alone, and as a result, they won 8 out of the 20 top prizes. Congratulations to St. Pete's. Our keynote, Sam Dema, was a very inspirational speaker. In Instagram posts where students reached out to him, it was clear that his motivational message of small, consistent actions over time can make a big difference, and it really struck a positive nerve with our students. Mr. Dema also spoke at 3 other sessions, including a Q&A, a masterclass on goal setting, and a masterclass on public speaking. The Navigating Identity series this year offers students a personal look into experiences of past and present students who identified as racialized, an English language learner, 2SL LGBTQ+, or Indigenous. Wellness workshops were introduced this year as a component of the launch event days. For example, students were able to attend workshops that taught about nutrition, meal planning, and living on a budget. And here is the link to the launch website where all of the sessions are recorded and posted. So many feedback forms were shared with students, educators, and exhibitors. We had a lot of data collected. Students were given an opportunity to complete these feedback forms. And again, we were able to see how well each session was attended. We received information from the students and from the teachers and from the exhibitors. And a lot of it was very positive, as you can see. We were even told by teachers like Susie Logan, health and wellness SHISM teacher, who said she was going to use the recordings as a reach ahead opportunity for her students. We got feedback from Algonquin College. Tracy Norris said she was very impressed and gave kudos to the whole team. John Holmes, who was a student recruitment officer at Algonquin College, said it was easily the best virtual career fair he attended to date. An anonymous student said that they absolutely loved it. It was great advice, and they're really happy they signed up for the webinar. And my apologies, just going back to the slide I just skipped. And then we move on to the OCSB Career Week, which ran November 1st to the 5th. We had activities and resources planned for K to 6 educators and also for 7 to 12. Feel free to click on these links to learn more. On the right here is a sample of what we had planned for our elementary educators. And we had many events during the Career Week, like a keynote speaker, Joel Hilchey from Beanstalk. Over 2,000 students attended to hear his Career and Pathways talk. We also had a skilled trades career panel, which was open to grade 5 to 8 students, and over 1,500 students signed up for that. That week, we also had a fun build a OYAP house for grade 3 classes. And by building this house, they were able to learn about the 21 different trades it took to build the house. And then we moved on to the Take Your Kid to Work Day. And Take Your Kid to Work Day fell on November 3rd, which was in the middle of the Career Week. This is a ministry mandated day. We had activities planned, and we shared all these activities with the grade 9 teachers. The link is right there. Some teachers or some students may have chosen to experience this day in the community, while others may have attended classes. Teachers were asked to register with Learning Partnerships and join some of the activities that we had planned and that Learning Partnerships had planned. The grade 9 teachers were encouraged to deliver a minimum of 60 minutes of the lesson, both in period 1 and in period 2. And these lesson plans were created centrally and provided to assist teachers. Many of the lessons were also real-time activities and workshops. Our career panels, they are running throughout the year. Multiple career panels in different industry sectors are being offered. And we have partnered with Ocsb, the Ottawa Network for Education. For example, this morning there was a business career panel with over 800 students in attendance. Many panels are organized with specific focus on presenters in a career field related to a theme in a particular week. So another example of that is our Computer Science Week, where we have a tech career panel on December 10th. All of these career panel recordings are also posted on our Career and Pathways website. Thank you for inviting us to share our Career and Pathways fall initiatives with you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, ladies. Comments or questions? Trustee Moore, then Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Nita. Nita, it's good to see you again. But my question is, how did it worked? So some of the best parts of going to these things are hanging out with your friends. So was it 2 or 3 kids around a Chromebook just enjoying some of the presentations and the exhibits together, or was it each student had their own Chromebook?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the answer to Trustee Moore's question is the students were able to register ahead of time. Educators were able to register ahead of time, so were the parents. And then they were, in their email, given a link and a way of getting into the virtual career fair with their own device. So everyone was on their own device. And you can use any device to enter this virtual career fair, which we worked with VFairs in order to have this platform.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I think to Ms. Bernabo, I think she was the one who mentioned it. You said that this year parents were invited to the career week activities or day activities. What is the advantage of having parents take part in it? Why do we want that to happen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the answer to Trustee Curry's question is the advantage to having parents there is giving them the opportunity to gain the same information that their child is gaining at school or at home through their device, and then being able to have that conversation with their child afterwards. So having a son in grade 12, I too was able to then have that conversation of what he viewed that day in school. And it provides dialogue among the child, among the student and the parent, and then they're both on the same page. Sometimes our children don't share the information with us, and it's always nice as a parent to get that information as well, so we can better support our child.
Oh, supplementary, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, and just, is there any a component of that is sort of trying to convince parents that there are careers and trades other than going to university, or is that any part of it, or is it just basically what you have explained?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the answer to Trustee Curry's question is absolutely yes. And thank you so much for mentioning that. There was literally something for every student. And the message that we were also giving is that there's not one right pathway. There's many pathways. And so even with the beginning of the launch career fair, starting with Sam Dema's talk being basically about that, it really helped the students who perhaps aren't university bound to know that there are many other amazing, great options for them. And it really gives them a sense of calm, learning more about the other options as well as they gather the information.
Thank you.
Trustee Simpson?
I think something that really impressed me was the level of collaboration between our board and the district board that enabled us to reach the sheer volume of students that attended. So I guess my question is not trying to replace face-to-face, where I do realize there's a social aspect, and it's always lovely to meet someone in the trades in person to ask in-person questions. But would you consider, after this experience, to perhaps coming at this with more of a hybrid approach with a combination of virtual and in-person career panels?
For you, Mr. Chair, the answer to Trustee Simpson's question is absolutely. This year, we did not have the option of doing an in-person career fair. So we went virtual, and with being able to go virtual, we were able to reach so many students. That number, 12,000, is quite incredible. We would never be able to accomplish that if we were all in person. Moving forward, we'll see what next school year brings. And I think from now on, we've sort of learned from COVID that there always is that virtual option as well. So to be able to suit many different learners and many different needs, it's nice that we are able to do a hybrid option if need be.
If I might add, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer Trustee Simpson's question as well. I think when I look at the list of people that we were able to obtain to attend, we had a lot of presenters who were coming from colleges and universities across Ontario that did not have to travel. There wasn't an additional cost for them to come for these things. I definitely think there's room to have local employers and organizations that would be able to be in person. I'm just taking a look, like Mattamy Homes was in our top 5 of the booths that were visited. And I look at the opportunities for Lambton College, Ryerson, McMaster, having Trent University come, as well as Trucking Canada, Automotive Business School of Canada. So we've had people come from other provinces, even outside of Ontario, to be able to provide tremendous opportunities for students to access people that they wouldn't be able to. So I would definitely see it being a combination to keep part of that virtual piece in there, because there's it enhances the types of organizations and employers that we're able to expose our students to.
Perhaps you don't see a whole bunch of heads nodding, so perhaps a combination of the two is the best way to do it.
I think there's a definite virtual side that allows us to provide opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise, but there's definitely the focus on having local business and supporting those in Ottawa, particularly because a lot of our students could potentially be staying in town and working for them in the future.
It sounds like it was very successful. Is there any other questions or comments? Trustee Lawrence, then Trustee Curry.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Anyone can answer this, and I don't need it tonight. I lost my question. I threw out a paper and it had all my questions on it, which was brilliant on my part. But I would be interested in knowing if at some time one of you could email me and let me know how many participants you had in the Canadian car, whatever it was, okay, or anything automotive. I'd be very interested in knowing how many of our OCSB students, if you have stats like that. Thank you.
We can do that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Bernabo or Ms. Lawler. With regard to take your kid to work, I didn't realize it was mandated by the province, but I suppose I should have. In any case, could you explain maybe one or two things that you do to enhance that experience to make it more than just take your kid to work? You sort of get the idea that, well, the student is just tagging along and whatever. What are some one or two things that you do to enhance that experience to make it much more and make it worthy of being mandated by the province?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the answer to trustees' question is that we encourage the parents and the employers to also attend the Learning Partnerships webinar that is offered weeks in advance. And by attending that webinar, the employers are basically given tips how to enhance that experience for the students. And everything from a sample daily agenda that they can provide the student with, or little sample activities. And we found that to be very effective.
All right, thank you.
So are there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, ladies, for your presentation. Very informative, and it sounds like it was a great success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item G, declarations of conflict of interest. None. Confirmation of the minutes of the regular board meeting of November 9th, 2021. Trustee Simpson.
I would like to recommend an amendment to the minutes to accurately depict an attendance status for Trustee Armstrong to read absent due to suspension. And I would like to recommend that the previous minutes reflect the same amendment.
Thank you. And Trustee Coburn?
Yeah, I support that edit as well.
So you'll second the motion?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, moved by Trustee Simpson, second by excuse me, Trustee Coburn, that the minutes of the regular board meeting of November 9th, 2021 be adopted as amended to reflect the change that Trustee Armstrong is absent because of suspension and to update previous minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Excuse me. There's no trustee motions. Excuse me. Item K1, presentation and consideration of committee reports, Committee of the Whole Board, November 23rd, 2021. Memo from the Mr. Vice Chair, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very pleased to bring forward two items for the board's approval this evening, coming out of the closed session. One being the new Riverside South Catholic Elementary School site acquisition approval. And a motion read as follows: that the memorandum from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities entitled New Riverside South Catholic Elementary School Site Acquisition Approval dated November 17th, 2021 be received, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Thank you. That was moved by who, sorry?
Sorry, moved by Trustee Warren and seconded by Trustee Simpson.
Sorry, I can't. Trustee, second.
Moved by Trustee Warren, seconded by Trustee Simpson.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And equally exciting, Mr. Chair, it was moved by Trustee Moore and seconded by Trustee Curry. The memorandum from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities entitled New Fernbank Catholic High School Site Acquisition Approval dated November 17th, 2021 be received, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's it. Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Item 2, memo from the Superintendent of Finance Administration, minutes of the Audit Committee meeting, regular session, September 21st, 2021.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Mr.
Superintendent Schimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These minutes are for receipt.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Coburn. Seconder, Trustee Simpson. Discussion? None? Trustee Simpson.
I would just like to compliment the Internal Audit Committee and the Audit Committee for the support that they showed the principals and OAs. I understand that there's been a video made for helping them with bank reconciliations, and school-generated fund guidelines are being collaboratively, that their guidelines are being developed, and that also there's been collaboration with principals to develop a simplified fundraising plan. I really think that the amount of support that's been given to schools in this regard is great.
Thank you. Moved by Trustee Coburn, second by Trustee Simpson, that the memorandum from the Superintendent of Finance and Administration dated November 17, 2021, containing the September 2021 Audit Committee meeting minutes for the regular session be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 3, memo from the Superintendent of Finance and Administration, read Audit Committee annual reports for the year ended August 31st, 2021. Welcome back, Superintendent Shimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the two reports that you have in front of you are the standard reports that come to the board each year, and they are both a prescribed template as prescribed by the ministry. So the first report in your package is the annual report from the Audit Committee to the Board of Trustees, which if you get, I'm starting with the end in mind, the last part of the report is attesting that the Audit Committee has discharged their duties and responsibilities under the Regulation 361. And so that's duties and responsibilities in relation to governance, external auditors, internal auditors, and statutory work during the year that are listed in that report. The second report is a report that goes from the board to the ministry. It's a truncated report because they are looking for the audits that have been performed in the boards during the year. And so I submit these for receipt, and then once received, the second one will be submitted to the ministry.
Questions or comments? Trustee Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Superintendent Shimmons. With regard to the report to the province, do we ever get any feedback on that, or do they just pigeonhole that away, or is there some feedback or an input comes back from that, or comments on it?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Trustee Curry, that's an excellent question. There used to be a assigned, I'll call him provincial coordinator, that was assigned to coordinate the regional internal audit teams and committees around the province. That position is no longer in place, and the audit function within the ministry is under review. There is a report that they have that they're looking at making some changes. So at the current time, we don't receive any feedback from the reports we submit, but our regional internal auditor previously would have received some feedback through that coordinator. Now, without the coordinator, the regional managers are working together in order to collaborate on some of the audits that are done, but no specific direct feedback related to our individual audits are received from the ministry.
Thank you.
Trustee Coburn?
Yeah, and as one of the signatories to that report, I can confirm that I've never received any feedback from the province with regards to that, John. I would suggest, though, to a degree, the report is usually, although it's a short report, the report is usually a reflection of the work that we're doing, in particular with internal audit. So I think the ministry's looking at it, they're probably pleased with that report.
Is there any other questions or comments? Can I have a mover for him, please? No one, then everybody. Trustee Coburn and Trustee Simpson. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Finance and Administration dated November 17, 2021, entitled Audit Committee Annual Reports for the year end of August 31st, 2021 be received, and that the Audit Committee annual reports for both the Board of Trustees and the Ministry of Education for the year ended August 31st, 2021 be received and forwarded to the Ministry of Education as appropriate. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Superintendent Shimmons. Item L1, presentation and consideration of staff reports. Memo from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities. Read the 2021-2022 school renewal budgets and recommended work. Welcome, Superintendent Vallon. Mr. Baxter.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair.
Tonight we bring forward our annual plan for the 2021-22 school renewal budgets and school condition plan and recommended work. Ian Baxter, our manager of planning and construction, will be making the presentation on behalf of the planning facilities department.
Thank you, Superintendent Vala, and good evening, everyone. Through you, Mr. Chair, trustees have in front of them tonight a report regarding a school renewal work plan for the 2021-2022 school year. This is a report that we bring forward every year that provides recommendations for projects to be funded from the school renewal allocation and school condition improvements grants that we receive from the Ministry of Education. For the 2021-2022 school year, the SRA allocation from the ministry is just over $7.7 million, while the SCI allocation is approximately $15.7 million. Combined, the figures represent nearly $24 million of important new investment into our schools and sites. Although at times a challenge in putting together the plan, we attempt to balance individual school needs with system requirements and within available budgets. We strive to create welcoming learning environments for both students and staff, and support deep learning with modern school facilities and flexible instructional spaces. The recommended plan includes areas of need for the renewal of major capital building components and systems. Annual repair and maintenance program work is also part of the plan. Some of the unique projects included in this year's plan are the refurbishing of a developmental education classroom at St. Luke Nepean Elementary School in Barrhaven, the renewal of main reception and front entrances at St. Mary Elementary School in South Gloucester, and St. Bernard Elementary School in the Blossom Park area. And we're also commencing a high school science lab modernization project that will take place over a number of years. The installation of UV ceiling fans in appropriate classrooms will continue next year. The input that we've received from teaching staff so far respecting these fans has been very positive, and we're going to continue with that project. We will also begin preparing for what is required in our schools to be compliant with 2025 AODA targets. We are continuing our classroom projector and whiteboard replacement project with Learning Technologies. That project is being completed in a phased manner across the system. It began in 2019, and we are now moving into year 3 of that phased project. The recommended plan is attached tonight to the report as Appendix 1 for school renewal allocation projects in the amount of $7,743,000, and as Appendix 2 for school condition improvement projects totaling $15 million and $739,000, $15,739,000. As always, the approved plan should be considered a dynamic planning document. Facility staff will work over the winter with consultants to more fully scope out projects and budgets, and in some cases to identify specific schools. A few words regarding other capital work that we have. The temporary accommodation allocation grant from the ministry is reserved for the purchase, relocation, and repair of portable classrooms. The current expectation for the coming school year is that a majority of these dollars will be used to relocate existing portables as required. It should be noted, however, given the situation that we continue to be in terms of the pandemic and its impact on enrollment and participation, that this may change as more information is known regarding school-by-school projected enrollments and associated classroom needs. The need for renewal work at the CEC building is ongoing. Included in the report is a recommendation for funds to complete a variety of projects, including LED lighting, accessibility upgrades, and the replacement of the network server room's cooling system. Similar to previous years, we intend on continuing with the completion of renewal projects originally approved by the board as part of last year's work plan, but still outstanding. We also intend to bring a report forward to the board in the new year that will serve to redirect some of the board's available SCI funds in reserve to new capital renewal projects. A focus for some of these dollars will be to continue with ventilation enhancements to some of our schools, where existing systems would benefit from upgrade. We thank you for the time this evening and are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Trustee Moore, Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Baxter. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, I'm not actually sure what pit safety steps are. I know what the pits are at the schools, and making them safer is awesome, because I always do worry about falling over. But how are you going about that?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll begin responding to the trustee question, and Superintendent Valla may also wish to weigh in with some information. But so pit safety steps really are sort of a rubberized, and graded and textured area that surround that Learning Commons pit. Basically, a sort of a physical notification that lets the students and staff know that they are close to the steps that lead into that pit. So really a safety issue, and one that also allows us to maintain those sort of unique features in some of those schools.
Okay. Thank you. May I have a supplementary, sir?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know what that is, Mr. Baxter. My next question is a process question. So now that I know what a pit safety step is, if, say, one principal at a school said, hey, this is a great idea, I want to try this, does that go from being a special project then to becoming something at each pit when you see how well it works? Is that how your process sort of works? Or how do you come up with 6 schools or 5 schools having this done this year?
Through you, Mr.
Or maybe through you, Mr. Chair, I just maybe add to that question answer for Mr. Baxter, in that there are only so many schools that actually have those recessed areas in those libraries, and so these were, we had explored whether or not we should fill them in, but then you'd have a lower ceiling. So this is a really good compromise that we can retain those features. So there aren't very many schools that have that, and we plan to do that around the district. So it's a progressive piece. So any school that has that requires that tactile sort of caution that there's a change in elevation, much like you see in sidewalks out on the streets and stuff like that, where that you're about to come up to an edge. And now we're able to retain those. So just the schools that actually have the pits is where we're going to be doing it. I'll be rolling it across all those sites.
Oh, well, it's a great idea. Just was wondering how you process doing it. So thank you.
Trustee Warren?
Thanks. Through Mr. Chair. Great work putting this together. It looks like we're going to have a lot of great activities done for the amount of money we're spending on this. But just a couple of questions around, I noticed in electrical you have distribution upgrades. These upgrades, will they be offering energy efficient, or is it just because of the aging product? And then around the energy management, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the time clocks, how that fits around the energy management part.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. So they did, as you know, that a lot of the electrical infrastructure that we have, the distribution is considered where all the power supply and the breaker panels and the main buses. So it doesn't really affect necessarily the efficiency of a building, but it protects it from deterioration of the wires. A lot of times our breakers are starting to fail. They get weak. They don't hold the load, or we sometimes need to expand a number of with the need for additional circuits in our schools where we need more breakers. We couldn't find more breakers, so at this point we're able to just upgrade the tubs, the breakers, the distribution cables. Sometimes the incoming service is at end of life, so we're replacing transformers. So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot done, but the building's a lot safer and certainly is far more reliable, so you don't have those unexpected power failures in the schools.
Is there any other questions? Trustee Curry? Sorry, Trustee Warren, you finished, or you got a supplemental?
Sorry, I was just wondering if there's an answer for the second question in regards to the energy management for time clocks, how that ties into it.
Could you maybe explain what you mean by that?
Sorry, you just have category energy management, and then you have time clocks as the description. Just wondering how they fit into each other.
Yeah, so a lot of times what we have is we have timers on lighting, building automation systems and things like that. So that's what that is. Sorry, I didn't realize that. So we just introduce automation systems and time clocks, outdoor lighting, that sort of thing. So those have to be updated. Normally in the schools, they've got battery powered clocks, so that's a different system altogether.
Thank you.
Trustee Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. One to Mr. Baxter. You mentioned that some projects that had been delayed or will be proceeded with this year. Is the St. Isidore gymnasium upgrade one of those?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and in response to Trustee Curry's question, so as you know, in May 2021, we submitted a capital priority for a gymnasium addition to St. Isidore. That project included the renovation of internal space in the building, the relocation of the learning commons to the existing gym. So we felt it would be prudent to not move forward with that until we had a response from the ministry regarding our request for funding for the addition. I believe we have not heard anything to date, but I believe the word is that we're going to hear something in terms of that capital priority submission sometime in the near future. Once we have that information, we'll be better able to make a decision around the renovation of that existing gym space at St. Isidore.
Oh, okay, thank you. And supplementary, Mr. Chair, just one more.
Go ahead.
Through you to Superintendent Vala. These two funds, the SRA and the SCI, and I think there's different uses can be made of them. Could you explain the different uses that are made of them? And if we had a project, say, like upgrading our defibrillators, would that qualify under one of them or not?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair. So there are some capital requirements under both portfolios. First of all, the SCI, the School Condition Improvement Fund, that has to do with existing building infrastructure. So the defibrillators are really a piece of equipment, so they wouldn't be eligible for that kind of transportable, non-permanent type of device. So that would be an operational type of cost that we would have to use in our annual allocation to our operating funds for those upgrades. The school renewal funds, there is a bit of flexibility in that it needs to be facility related work. However, part only, I think, 50-50 split, I believe it is, where part of it has to be capital for capital renewal and the other can be around the maintenance side of things. So like, for instance, if we're replacing floor tiles or doing some hardware replacement and locker replacements, those are eligible. They're smaller, but they're still building related and they're still a building asset piece. So they're all usually have to be something that's fixed, and it can be operated in an operating type of function. But again, with building equipment that it is brick and mortar, not necessarily for consumables. That has to come out of, or something like that where it can move. It has to be funded out of an operating field.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions before I go back to Trustee Warren? Trustee Moore? Sorry, sir, let's go around the first. Has anybody else got a first question first? Okay, Trustee Warren, then Trustee Moore.
Thanks, through you, Mr. Chair. Question for Superintendent Vala. With regards to the portable classroom LED lighting upgrade, could you remind me, do we own, does the board own these portables or are they leased?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we own all of our portables and porta-packs, so they are our own. And historically, we've not invested into the lighting upgrades in those portables. So we're looking at next year to go around and put in LED lighting. That way we can reduce our electrical costs and reduce our electrical consumption within those portables. Since we've added air conditioning to several of them, it's going to certainly help offset some of the operating costs in our schools. So yeah, they're owned by us. Certainly they have a life cycle, and they do have a renewal cycle as well, but they're not funded the same way as building infrastructure. So they've been held off for a while.
Thank you.
Trustee Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Baxter mentioned in his presentation the accessibility legislation and the requirements in 2025. Which projects specifically are helping towards that, and what should be looking forward in the next few years as you do more and more projects to meet this? What kind of accessibility are we trying to reach?
Through you, Mr. Chair. A great question, and it certainly has been one that's not been funded directly by the province, and so it's a real challenge. 2025 is coming upon us very quickly, because considering that we've had almost 20 years to do something. Ultimately, at this point, there are needs within the system that we need to determine and to assess as to where we're going to prioritize some of the work that we need to continue to make the schools accessible. And accessibility has a variety of parameters. One most people are familiar with is certainly the barrier-free piece, right? So where you have ramps and door operators and some of the actual doorways that are wide enough, counters, washroom partitions and things like that. So those items are going to be surveyed and audited as an overall need within our system. So we're going to be soliciting the services of some of the professional consultants to help us with that work. I've done that in the past in my career, where we've done a full assessment and determined what needs are there. Like, accessibility can be something as such as hard of hearing, sight, mobility. So there's a variety of elements that you can bring through to meeting an AODA standard. Typically, over the years, we've been trying to address those needs on a case by case basis, as we have students or staff that have needs for those accessibility pieces. But my experience has been that in my estimate would be that we're probably looking at a $40 or $50 million backlog or need in our system for accessibility to be fully AODA compliant. Province recognizes that, and that's why they haven't really contributed a lot of funds to that portfolio over the years. And boards have been sort of left to their own to try to make things work. Overall, the province has made inroads in making sure that new construction, major renovations, all comply with AODA requirements. But some of the pre-existing buildings, like for instance, for us to install elevators in some buildings is almost impossible, right? So, you can put portable lifts and rather than, that sort of thing. So we'll be assessing that in the coming year. And then we'll certainly try to target, what we get best bang for buck to make sure that we do provide accessibility within the family of schools, within those schools that need it, and then certainly target the needs of our those that have accessibility requirements, an AODA awareness on our part.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Curry, you have a further question?
Just a quick one, Mr. Chair, please. And it's to Mr. Baxter or Superintendent Valla. In the work plan, there's washroom upgrades to St. Isidore and to St. Patrick Elementary. Are those extensive, and is that part of an ongoing program doing school by school, or are these exceptions?
Do you want to speak to this, Ian, or do you want me?
I can sort of begin, I guess, through you, Mr. Chair, and in response to the trustee question. So those two sites have been chosen from a sort of a prioritized list. And in those cases, they would be, significant, extensive renovations. given the value that's assigned to them. We're looking to, go beyond just simply toilet partitions, more superficial upgrades and sort of refurbishing. So those would be significant renovations and upgrades. And really what we have is, we have a list of sites, that are prioritized. So those are the first two, or at the top of the list in terms of, or next on the list, in terms of sites where we're targeting those kinds of upgrades.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a mover, please? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Trustee Warren. Moving up. Thank you.
Next, moving up.
Second. Trustee McEwen. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities dated November 17, 2021, entitled 2021-2022, School Renewal Budgets and Recommended Work be received, and that the recommended projects and funding sources for school renewal allocation and school condition improvement contained therein be approved, and that the board authorize the expenditure of $700,000 for improvements to the CEC to be funded by the accumulated surplus internally appropriated fund, the Catholic Education Center Fund. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8, memo from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities, annual energy management report for 2020-2021. Superintendent Bell.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased and excited to bring forward our Planning Facilities Annual Energy Management Report for 2020, 21. Certainly it's a good news piece here, and over the past 16 years, our energy management plan continues to be something that highlights our combined efforts on energy conservation, energy efficiency updates, and environmental stewardship. Despite the challenges and impacts of COVID-19, we were able to continue with many of our energy conservation initiatives throughout this past year. We've been able to stay on course with many of our facility investments and sustain good operational practices. Much like the previous year's targets, we've been successful in reducing electrical consumption by 34% and gas by 25% over the past 5 years. Since 2005, our base year, we have been able to avoid costs of nearly $46.8 million, and which includes a $4.6 million cost avoidance this last year alone. Despite the continued rise in the hydro rates over the years, we've been able to reduce our total utility consumption and costs on an annual basis. Despite having more square footage added to our inventory again last year with new portables and the addition of St. Joseph High School, we've had the benefit of a moderate winter compared to the previous year, which helped stabilize our consumption through the heating season. Last summer was slightly warmer than normal, which added to our electrical demands. However, with the schools being shuttered due to COVID-19 again, we were able to have significant savings in electricity for part of the year. In the end, the energy usage for last year had a natural gas reduction by nearly 4%, water was down by 2%, and electricity reduced by nearly 16%. Our 5-year conservation demand management plan continues to target an energy conservation goal of 5% reduction annually. To put things into perspective, the impact of our conservation success has reduced our greenhouse gas emissions to the equivalent of eliminating the carbon footprint of nearly 13,500 cars. In order to target a net zero carbon footprint, green energy power generation is an option that we continue to support and explore. We have the added benefit of revenues from 4 solar photovoltaic installations that were able to generate nearly $150,000 last year in revenues. As part of supporting future electrical vehicle development and infrastructure needs, we recently added an electric vehicles charging station as a trial at the CEC and have made provisions for charging stations at our future school sites and designs. We'll continue to look for green energy incentives in the future to help with commitments to greenhouse gas reductions. We continue to invest in energy efficiencies found in new advancements in LED lighting, high efficiency boilers, and chillers. We are a provincial leader in incentive rebates to to support purchases of energy-efficient equipment. Our board is the largest participant in the rebate programs available to the public sector. With the ongoing carbon taxes that have been collected federally, we anticipate new energy efficiency and green energy initiatives to come in the coming years. Our hope is to continue towards reducing our carbon footprint and investing into new green technologies. For the fiscal year 2020-21, we had set energy management targets to build on successes that we had over the past years. We rely largely on sustaining operational and behavioral practices, along with continued investments in capital improvements and energy efficiency projects. This year's targets have overall annual consumptions remaining relatively flatline near last year's levels, with very modest increases due to increased gross floor areas from school additions and new programs. The Green Energy Act requires a board's report on energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions annually. The OCDSB has been a top performing board in the province 3 times and has been in the top 6 every year since the board has been ranked by Sustainable School Organization. This year we've been ranked number 1 in the province among 72 school boards. It certainly is an attestation to the good work that we've been doing over the years. There are numerous risk factors that will impact the success of our forecasted conservation goals. Our success will continue to rely on conservation-minded occupant behavior and continued commitment to energy conservation. There are continued pressures to provide air conditioning in our older schools and portables. As a result of federal and provincial ventilation funding, we were able to add air conditioning and ventilation systems to 225 portable classrooms last summer. We're also able to install 200 ceiling circulation fans that provide UVC disinfection and air movement, provide cooling in schools that don't have air conditioning. Ventilation upgrades will be a focus as some of our schools that were identified as needing investments through the CBRIS funding process for air quality. So that will be something that we will be investing in the coming year, and Mr. Baxter provided that within our SCIS FRP plan. We continue to work with our schools to help find a balance between needs and sustainability. As we build new schools and do major capital renewal work, we will meet current building codes and regulations to support continued investments in higher thermal performance, better ventilation systems, and lower water consumption. Despite the challenges of COVID-19 this year, and as we return to a normal-like activity, the success of our energy management plan relies on continued collective effort of all our staff and students across the board, and the fostering of an energy conservation mindset. Our faith communities help encourage our environmental culture that supports planet-friendly behavior and to ensure a sustainable future. Our energy management plan makes substantial contributions to the community and to be innovative. We're proud to be a provincial leader in energy management and conservation, and we look forward to continued success in the coming year. As a final note, I want to acknowledge the work of Jerry Sankarchi, our Property and Operations Officer. He's helped develop our energy management plan and practices. His professional commitment and enthusiasm to the energy portfolio has been an inspiration to us here in planning and facilities and has led to the success of our school board. Jerry will be retiring in March and will leave big shoes to fill by his successor. His leadership is greatly appreciated, and his work leads us on the path to continued success. Thank you for the opportunity to present, and I'll offer an opportunity to answer some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just going to add to that, Superintendent Valla. I understood that Jerry Sankarchi was going to be here this evening, so I wrote a little thank you note to him, but I understand that he is watching the presentation, so I'll read what I wrote. I'd like to thank Jerry Sankarchi for his years of service, as this will be his final energy management report to the board before retiring. Jerry's been with our board for the past 20 years. The energy management program we currently follow was established in 2003 by Jerry, Fred Crystal, and Chris Murphy. From the outset, it has been said that the program's success was a result of the decision to allow caretakers to have operation control over the HVAC systems in their schools, as well as Jerry's ability to deliver a clear and concise message to the caretakers and administrators on the merits of conservation. Jerry and Paul Prue started a caretaker orientation program in 2006, which included site-specific building operation information for head caretakers. Jerry still meets with every newly hired head caretaker to ensure that they have a good understanding of how each school is designed to operate. Since 2003, utility cost savings as a result of the board's energy management program is approaching $47 million. The OCSB has been the top performing board in the province 3 times and has been in the top 6 every year the board's been ranked by the Sustainable Schools organization. Jerry understood early on that the tremendous value in applying for energy conservation incentives for the projects the board was already undertaking, so much so that the OCSB leads the province in funds received from utility conservation initiatives. Jerry is known across the province for his involvement in various presentations on best practices to the OMC Energy Committee. Jerry was recognized as a Director of Education Award recipient in 2015, justly deserved. Whether you were a first-year head caretaker or a veteran mechanical project coordinator, Jerry will ensure you keep your energy conservation at the top of your mind when you're making decisions about the operation of or the renovation of a OCSB facility. So Jerry, I would like to thank you for your commitment to the Ottawa Catholic School Board and congratulations on your upcoming retirement.
And if I may, on behalf of Jerry, he was very humbled by, he said he was very humbled by the acknowledgement and recognition that he's getting from the board. You know, it just speaks testament to the humility that he has and the service that he's shown over the years. So as well, thank you for recognizing him at this time.
Energy would be a near and dear to my heart as well. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Paul Proof for sharing his thoughts for me, helping with this speech. So thank you, Paul, for your help. Questions or comments? Now that I've had all mine. Trustee Lawrence.
To you, Mr. Chair, just to add that Jerry's a really nice guy too. So Jerry, we're going to miss you. Thank you for everything.
Any other questions? Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Superintendent Valla. What are there roadblocks, or what are the roadblocks? Why are we not having more rooftop installations to generate power? Are there certain not structural by our structures, but are there certain roadblocks in the programs and that make it it just doesn't work for us?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a very good question, Trustee Curry. As you may know, what was initially introduced quite a few years back was called a FIT program, feed-in tariff. And so there were some significant incentives with rates. I think the residential rates were nearly 80 cents a kilowatt hour for electrical generation. And there was FIT 1, FIT 2, and FIT 3, and progressively the rates were reduced as cost of these arrays became less or more affordable. They've terminated all the federal incentives or provincial incentives for feed-in tariffs. So at this point now it comes down to an economic piece where, you know, the return on investment currently on if you try to use the current rates, electrical rates, they're probably 15 to 20 years before you have a return on a capital investment. So a lot of school boards have to use their own money to invest to put those panels on the roofs. Lately, with the time of use changes with the cost of electricity and demand-rated electrical, it's starting to make more sense to be able to do that. But there's been a period of time where financially there wasn't a return on investment for the capital part, and also the province has not provided specific funding for that. So you either have to find some sort of an operating fund, or you can use some renewal dollars to do that. But again, there's so much need on the facility renewal side that not all boards have been able to invest into those pieces. So hopefully we're going to see that return of those funds. You may recall there was called an energy efficiency fund that the province had a few years back. which help to invest money or invest into green energy infrastructure. And at this point, there's nothing out there that specifically targets that. So it's a difficult one to make it. And it really has to be a priority for a school board to invest those dollars for that. And there's so much need to be had. So, but we are looking to install panels as soon as it becomes possible for us to work within our funding allocations.
Thank you.
Trustee Coburn.
Great, thank you. So yeah, congratulations, Miro and Ian. Exceptional work on behalf of something that's near and dear to everybody in the world these days. If we could get some of our other politicians to meet some of these targets, maybe we'd be on our way. I just have one question with regards to the ECHO schools. I know we have 59 schools that are part of that program, and I know, or I'll let you answer, I guess, maybe just identify some of the challenges to maybe get some of the other schools into that program.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. On the elementary school side, it seems to be well received. There are usually, an energy or an eco school club where kids participate, and so it seems to be cool to be green. Whereas I find that with a secondary panel, it's hard to find the people to embrace it and to be committed to it. So it really is you do have some of the high schools that get involved, but not all of them. So a lot of times it is a bit of a challenge to get the youth to get into it. Now I know that it is becoming more sexy to get into the green energy and the recycling and the pieces that you can do to conserve energy and lights, waste management, all of those pieces. But at this point, like I said, you really do need a commitment between the caretaking staff, the administration, the teachers, and especially the students. And like I said, it's been a bit of a challenge within the secondary panels, but fortunately we've got the 7 and 8s with the intermediates that can help bridge that gap. So hopefully with this past year, it's been very difficult for us to determine performance because again, you can't go in. We had to suspend recycling for the past year because of contact of product. So we're looking at reinstating all of those programs in the coming year.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much, Superintendent Vela. And again, congratulations, Jerry, on your upcoming retirement, and thank you for all your service. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Lawrence and Trustee Curry. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities dated November 17, 2021, entitled Annual Energy Management Report 2020-2021 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 3, memo from the Superintendent of Elementary Student Success, kindergarten registration 2022-2023. Welcome, Superintendent Montgomery.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to let you know that I just received a notice that my computer might shut down in 4 minutes, and I wasn't able to start a new time on it. So if that happens, I'll switch to my phone, but I will get through this verbal report in 4 minutes. So it's hard to believe that we are excited to talk about a new school year already, where vaccines will be here for 5 to 11-year-olds, and hopefully a new normal begins. I'm very grateful to our kindergarten campaign team, which is a collaboration between the communications department and elementary student success with some valuable support from continuing education for the facilitation of the actual registration process. Together, we have developed a plan to engage our new kinder students from even before they register until they begin school in September 2022. Highlights of the plan include online registration that is efficient and effective, 3D virtual classroom tours available to parents while they're completing their online registration, engaging social media messages about how to prepare your children for kindergarten, sent all year long, welcome to kindergarten evenings, welcome to kindergarten packages that will be mailed to each family in the spring, Family Welcome Center ongoing registration for families throughout the school year, and Summer Registration Center registration for families in July and August. And finally, we certainly want to highlight our French immersion in kindergarten and our flexible programming that we will highlight throughout the campaign. As usual, we have chosen the week of January 10th to 14th to launch the official registration, but of course we will continue accepting student registration until September 2022. Our goal is to provide valuable resources to help prepare all families for this significant next step in their child's journey. We want our family to know we offer flexible options designed to meet their individual family needs, and we are excited to meet these new students. This concludes this verbal report at this time, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Understand we got a 4-minute timeline here.
No, I can jump onto my phone. I tried to fix it in a couple of minutes, but maybe
I
it
feel
won't.
your pain. I've done it all tonight.
Okay.
Trustee Simpson, then Trustee Curry.
Are we attempting, perhaps by the end of the school year or even at the beginning of the new school year, to allow parents in to see classrooms? I know it's difficult for a parent to bring their little 4-year-old and put them into an environment that they've never physically been in themselves. So I realize we still have COVID restrictions, but are we hoping to be flexible enough to perhaps entertain that option by the end of the year?
I would say that in collaboration with the other 4 boards and OPH, and as Associate Director Dunahee gets in collaboration with those conversations, if they open that up for us, we absolutely welcome that. I know that eases the mind of the parents, of the students, of the teachers, everyone involved. So if we get to that point, absolutely 100%. But it's a matter of collaborating with the other boards and OPH and seeing where we land on that. We're ensuring that everyone feels safe to get to that point.
Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Superintendent Montgomery. Does Blessed Carlo Virtual School have a different approach than the other ones to kindergarten registration, or is it the same as the bricks and mortar schools? I think we may have lost her.
I may be able to help for a second.
Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the trustee's question was, do we have a different approach? And yes, it is differentiated. So in terms of what we offer, obviously the format is a little bit different in virtual than it is in mortar and bricks. And Superintendent Montgomery is back. So Superintendent Montgomery, I just said that we do have a differentiated approach to our virtual academy for kindergarten versus our mortar and bricks, and that we would have a slightly different approach. You may want to elaborate on that. Or you're just muted, I think.
Sorry, so in terms of our virtual approach as opposed to our in-person approach? Was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So so we had an amazing welcome our kindergarten to virtual evening last year, and we would mirror that same process. We had a lot of great feedback around that. But in terms of our registration process, we would follow the same process in terms of allowing them to register online. They would register with Blessed Carlo, etc. However, yes, we would offer a welcome to kindergarten, but it would be all virtually. And we had as I mentioned, we had a wonderful evening last year. So we would continue with that sort of, and probably make it even better than last year since it was our first year attempting that sort of approach.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Superintendent Montgomery. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Lawrence, seconded by Trustee Moore. With the memorandum from the Superintendent of Elementary Student Success dated November 17, 2021, entitled Kindergarten Registration 2022-2023 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 4, memo from the Superintendent of Elementary Student Success, extended day programs at the OCSB. Welcome back, Superintendent Montgomery and Ms. Overoff. Welcome.
Thank you. I think I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket that my computer restarted right before both my presentations. So as you know, our valuable EDP program that serves 44 communities around Ottawa has had a couple of interesting years, as we all have. They have had to open, not open, open, not open. And throughout this process, our early years manager, Holly Overhoff, has been a steadfast leader to guide this very large staff throughout this process. We are pleased that all 44 sites are open again this year, as you'll hear, and that tonight we will share a presentation that will highlight connections with students, connections that EDP has, connections with the schools that EDP has, and connections with staff. So at this point, I'll pass it along to Holly.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to come speak to you a little bit about our extended day program successes. And we can start with the presentation. Great, so just to refresh your memories, our board operates 44 extended day programs, and these programs are non-licensed, recreational, before and after school for 4 to 12-year-olds. Next slide, please. Okay, so to start off with some successes, and as Superintendent Montgomery was explaining, we did pause 12 programs in the 2020-2021 school year due to extremely low enrollment, and we are happy to say that all the programs have been reopened this past September. The enrollment numbers are slowly increasing, and to illustrate that, we'd like to let you know that between November of 2020 and November of 2021, we've increased from 822 to 1,718 children. So that's an increase of 896 children, which is absolutely wonderful news for families. The wait lists are being monitored. And of course, we are very grateful to the OCSB to have kept all of our extended day program CUPE staff employed during the many closures of 2021. Next slide, please. Okay, so as mentioned, some of our successes are the connections with children. And that is achieved in part by our program philosophy, which is that the extended day programs are child-centered environments where children can learn safely through play. Our programs provide engaging activities and experiences. The daily program plan is developed collaboratively by the staff and the children, and this reflects the developmental needs and interests of the children in the group. Next slide, please. Okay, so an example of these connections with the children is that recently we had a staff member bring his guitar in to play some music, and many of the children were really engaged by this. In fact, some of their parents went out and bought some secondhand guitars for them to bring into the program, and now the children sit and play guitar quite frequently with this staff member, and they've started to write their own songs. So music is definitely helping the staff and the students connect and heal at this very critical time. Next slide, please. Our second big success is our connections with the school. The extended day programs prioritize and rely on positive connections with the schools, and we build those through daily interactions with office administrators, caretakers, principals, and educators. As we work with the same children throughout the day, the children are best served when the adults collaborate. Next slide, please. An example of this connection with the school is that recently we had a principal and an extended day program supervisor meeting regarding Ottawa public health information. It has actually happened more than once. And together they walk through the situations. And this team approach makes a big difference when we're all going through something time sensitive and very stressful. Next slide, please. And lastly, one big success that we see is the connections between the staff. During the 2021 school closures, our extended day program supervisors supported the school kindergarten teams in virtual learning environments, or they supported the children with special needs in the actual schools themselves. This showed great flexibility on everyone's part, and it resulted in strengthened relationships. And during regular times, the extended day program staff are encouraged to collaborate with staff from other programs to share, learn, and grow. They regularly take advantage of this. Next slide, please. So an example of this connection is that recently 2 supervisors each replaced themselves at their own programs for 2 afternoons 1 week to go to another program and observe and assist them as that program was experiencing some difficulties. The result so far has been a more clear picture of the issues shared at that one program, some shared strategies between them, and follow-up. These supervisors are now encouraging the children in all 3 of their programs to become pen pals. Next slide, please. Okay, and so just to finish off, we have some more successes. We have developed an improved online registration process for parents that we're very proud of. We've worked closely with the communications department on revamping our childcare section of the school board website, and this has facilitated information for parents with regards to the registration process. And most recently, we've had all of our extended day program staff participate in the very important Commit to Kids training. And that's it. I welcome any questions.
Questions or comments, trustees? Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Overhoff, and I guess we've lost Superintendent Montgomery, or maybe not. In any case, I was just wondering, with one of those last slides you showed about 2 supervisors going to help out another location, and it said that it was experiencing difficulties. Could you give us an example of what difficulty is?
Absolutely, and through you, Mr. Chair, in this particular instance, it was that the supervisor of that one program had to go on a leave. And so we were scrambling for some staff. We managed to piece things together, but as you know, without that consistency, it can cause a trickle-down effect, and the children can experience some difficulties. And so those 2 supervisors banded together to go assist those other staff and the children and the families.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Trustee Coburn, then Trustee Simpson.
Yeah, not a question, but just a comment. Just I would like to thank Holly in her leadership with regards to Childcare Corporation. Cindy and I sit on the board of that, or as your representatives on that board, and certainly COVID has impacted education, but also these programs significantly. So just really a shout out to Holly and her team.
Thank you. Trustee Simpson.
I'd like to echo Brian's sentiments. Holly does show exceptional leadership being in charge of both the Child Care Corporation and the extended day program. Her reach is huge with the number of children that are served. Just a question, kind of an operational question. We have difficulty getting supply teachers for, to cover all of these supplies that are needed across the board. And I was just wondering, with a program spread out as much as yours and often not getting a lot of notice, how is it that you accommodate, particularly during COVID, and you staff that are not present, because it's got to be a tricky situation for you.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, it is. And we're somehow making it work. We do rely on our trustee supply staff. We develop relationships with them. Each of the 44 programs of the extended day tends to have their little key group of supply staff that they rely on, and that can easily get to them. And the nature of supply staff is that they are kind of at the ready for these things. So we try our best to foresee these issues and to fix them before they actually happen. But sometimes it's last minute, and sometimes we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we figure it out and everyone is safe and happy.
Is there any other questions? Thank you very much, Holly, for your presentation. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Trustee Coburn, Trustee Simpson, did a dynamic duo tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Elementary Student Success dated November 17, 2021, entitled Extended Day Programs at OCS be received, All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Holly. Item 5, memo from the Superintendent of Finance Administration, re-audited consolidated financial statements for the year ended August 31st, 2021. Superintendent Shimmons, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on behalf of the Superintendent Edwards, you're going to share that presentation. Thank you. So on behalf of the Audit Committee, I'm pleased to present the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2021. Next slide, please. So the financial statements are compliant in all 3 areas, with the auditors, with the board, and with the ministry. So we have a favorable auditor's report, a clean report without any qualifications on it. We're compliant with the ministry regulations as filed in the forms to the ministry. And thirdly, we're compliant with the board approved budget. The fiscal year ended 2021 did show an overall enrollment decrease of 217 students. That did result in a reduction in enrollment grants, which would be equivalent to about $2 million. However, fortunately, in this fiscal year end, the ministry did provide some stability funding in order to offset some of that. So we did receive $1.7 million. So it helps to offset some of that. Next slide, please. So the accumulation to reserves during the fiscal year, we can see in the bottom right-hand corner, the achieved surplus for the year end of $5.9 million is what you will see reflected in the actual official financial statements of the board that have been audited. But if we move up to the top, to the grade area, what we're really interested in is the operating surplus for the year. So that's the operations from the board budget. And that increased by $5.1 million this year. So our surplus was $5.1 million. 5.3 is 1%. So our surplus for the year was almost 1%, which is a very good target. That would be from one-time and unusual savings, and a significant part of that surplus would be made up of the facility savings, so about $2 million there. And as we heard in the prior report, with the buildings being shuttered and the efficiency savings and energies that we've seen, a significant part of that would be from utilities. As well, when we set the budget in August, we did provide for $2.2 million in order to cover COVID costs. But subsequent to that, the ministry did provide for some COVID funding. So that helped to contribute towards the surplus as well. You can move to the next slide, please. In the deferred revenue area, so deferred revenue is revenues received in the year that we weren't able to spend that get carried forward to the following year. That has increased $10.3 million. A significant portion of that is related to the EDCs, or the education development charges, which contribute $5.1 million of that $10 million. So those funds are put away and they're restricted use by the ministry. And then if we move to the next slide. So the impact of the pandemic on operations. This is the second year that the pandemic has been reflected in operations. But different in this fiscal year end is there was $18.4 million worth of funding that came after the budget was set. And the costs related to providing the remote learning to more than 11,000 students, or about 27% of our population, as well as costs related to health and safety measures for those students and staff that attended in person. So that happened after the budget was set, and our costs related to COVID operating expenses were $27.5 million. That was made up of 118 additional staff that were added for remote learning, of teachers, special education, mental health, and some administrators, particularly for the virtual academy, as well as 1,000 HEPA and filter units, $3.9 million in PPE, and last but not least, $7.8 million for 7,700 tech devices, which was more than double our purchase volume on a normal year. So that's what was the 27.5 was composed of for COVID. And the ministry through the province and that flow through from the federal government was a total of $18.4 million towards that funding. And the board funded the remainder of $9.1 million. So that $9.1 million was funded through savings through the year from our board budget, transportation of $4.5 million. So we had a late start, as well as we had closures in January and again closures in the spring. Our replacement staff, the budget was under by $2 million, and again related to the closures during the time, over 3 months during the year. PD that wasn't able to be run, as well as difficulty getting replacement staff. And as well, $1.8 million in supply chain delays. So while goods were ordered very, very early in the year, earlier than normal, we still had a hard time filling orders by the cutoff time. So we're hearing from the economists that our supply chain is as much as 2 years behind, and we're feeling that in the results of this fiscal year end. And if we move to the next slide, please. So the process with respect to reviewing the financial statements, the audit committee is charged with the responsibility to oversee the audit process and the review of the final financial statements. And the board is responsible for the approval of the financial statements upon recommendation from the audit committee. We're very fortunate to have a very well represented and experienced audit committee. It's comprised of 3 trustees and 2 external members. And after following its process for review and oversight, the audit committee has a recommendation that the board approve the annual audited financial statements, which we will see on the final slide. Thank you. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions or comments? Trustee Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I just wish to say, Superintendent Shimmons and your staff, thank you very much. There was nothing but glowing reviews in the audit for your staff, so thank you. And you've taught me so much. I almost understand what we're doing now.
Trustee Coburn.
Sandra said it very well. Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of Superintendent Timmons through the pandemic from a financial point of view. It's been a difficult time for everybody, but it's been a difficult time from a financial point of view. And having a clean audit, finishing with a surplus, and managing to handle the number or the amount of COVID costs that we did as a board is exceptional. So no questions. We had our chance at audit committee last week. We asked all the questions we could. And just when it's time, I will move the audited financial statement.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Can I have a seconder, please? Trustee Moore. Moved by Trustee Coburn, second by Trustee Moore, that the Ottawa Catholic School Board consolidated financial statements for the year ended August 31st, 2021, as audited and reported by Deloitte LLP be approved. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 6, memo from the Superintendent of Finance Administration, 2021-2022 financial update. Superintendent Shimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now that we have just closed off last fiscal year, because at this time of year, we're always running kind of 3 years at the same time. So we'll move into the current fiscal year. So the purpose of the report in front of you is a memo to seek board approval of up to 1% from the accumulated surplus reserves. And that's whenever, in accordance, when we file the budget with the ministry on December 15th. And that's a normal filing that we file the revised budget at that time each year. As you've seen in the previous report, $5.1 million was added to the accumulated surplus reserves. So that brings the reserves unappropriated up to $28 million at the beginning of this fiscal year. And $28 million is equivalent to approximately 5%. Our enrollments for the current year are trending down from what we included in the budget. It's a decelerated growth rate. So the budget was provided a 2% increase in enrollment growth. And what we're finding we're trending right now is actually at a 0.8% enrollment growth. As the board is aware, enrollment is the main driver for funding. So that enrollment of 700 students less than what we provided for in the current year's budget represents about $7 million in revenue reductions through the GSNs. So, however, we're very happy that as of last Thursday afternoon, the ministry announced the second half of COVID funding, which means that we can apply $4.7 million of increased revenue against our revised estimates for balancing. We're in the process of confirming our staffing budgets right now, which represents 80% of our budget. We're also going through the other budgets, and we found some savings in benefit rates. So we found $500,000 there, but also we're finding some increased costs in other areas. So suffice it to say, when we finalize the budget, revised budget, the week of December 15th, we will be very close, and we may need to draw upon some of that unappropriated reserves in order to submit a compliant budget. We're hopeful that our enrollment growth rate will return. Other urban boards are seeing similar experiences in enrollment, and provincially, we're seeing that some enrollment is creeping out of urban areas into some of the outlying areas where those boards are seeing growth beyond what was expected. But for the current year, we feel it's important to maintain stability of programs for students and staff, and therefore we are seeking the approval of up to 1% if necessary in order to provide that balance in the revised budget. And I would be happy to take any questions at this time.
Questions or comments? Trustee Simpson, then Trustee Coburn.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Superintendent Shimmons, are we finding that the enrollment decrease is in a certain area of our city, or is it just spread all fairly evenly through East, West, and Central?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. That's a very good question. That's not something that I've had an opportunity to dig into. That would be something that planning would look at. Right now, obviously, we have a few thoughts, hypotheses about the reduction in enrollment, but just need to spend some more time digging into what that actual enrollment change. And we are in the process of doing that. The enrollment for the last couple of years has been really challenging. Big part of the enrollment is in the JK area. Obviously, we have a lot of federal employees in the city, so it's easier for them if they're working at home for those JKs to stay home. Similar to the other urban boards, GTA boards that have seen even larger shifts in their enrollment. The housing market makes a change, the supply chain shortages make a change. So there's a lot of reasons that we think could be contributing to that. But at this point, we just have the global picture and not necessarily the individual areas.
Trustee Coburn?
Yep, just again, a comment, not a question. Just I support this. I think you saw in the financial statements the reduction in attendance or at the school board, and it, as Lisa has identified, it's an area that that's concerning to a degree. And so I think having this safety net in place, be able to balance the budget going forward, is an important consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? On behalf of the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Shimmons, thank you for all your work and endless hours of obviously making things balance and work. And it is very good news that, as Trustee Coburn said, a successful audit and that we're only going into the budget for 1%. So congratulations to your team. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Warren, seconded by Trustee Coburn. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Finance Administration dated November 19, 2021, entitled 2021-2022 Financial Update be received and that the board approves the transfer of up to 1% of the 2021-2022 budget in accordance with the ministry regulation from unappropriated accumulated surplus reserves. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. New business? None. Notice of motions? None. Confirmation of the action report of November 9th. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Moore, Trustee Simpson. The action report for the period of November 9th, 2021 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Inquiries, administrative and announcements, Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to formally recognize our Manager of Finance, Gail Crozy, who is also retired. She officially retires before Christmas, but she is off as of now. She's done great service to our board for a long career, and working under former superintendents, has largely been responsible for balanced budgets, including some of the reports that were just shared today. So I do think it's important that we recognize the outstanding work of Gail Crozy, and happy to announce that through our succession planning, we have an internal candidate who has replaced Ms. Crozy. So we welcome Shelley Donnelly to the Manager of Finance role, and we thank Gail for her many years of service to the board.
Absolutely. Anything in addition?
That's everything, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. It is 8:56 p.m. Move to adjourn, please. Trustee Coburn and Trustee McEwen. That the regular board meeting of November 23rd, 21 be adjourned at 8:56 p.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I look forward to doing this in person in the